Hey, welcome back, podcast friends. Now, today, what I want to do, this is something that I'm getting that asked this question all the time. When people go to the doctor and they get their cholesterol panel or their lipid panel or whatever you want to call it, when they get this back, one thing that they've been noticing a lot is their triglyceride levels are very high. Okay. So I want to explain to you, I've broken down the past about VLDLs and LDLs and IDLs and HDLs. I've talked about what that is in the past. We've talked about what cholesterol is. And remember, LDLs and VLDLs and cholesterol are totally different things. I'll just explain it real quick, actually. um, what we're going to focus on today is triglycerides, because this is really this is the key. After I explained to everybody not to look at your LDL level, that gives you no information. I mean, it doesn't really give you any information at all. In fact, right now there's a lot of stuff showing that people with high LDLs are actually the healthiest, because LDL do so many good things with your body. So again, you've heard my rant on this. The only reason doctors talk about high LDLs is because drug companies told them that that was bad, and they just so happens they have a drug that'll take care of that. But anyway, that's not what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about triglycerides. Okay. So first, before we talk about triglycerides, because this is elevated in most people, and it's for the exact same reason that you hear me talking about every single week on this podcast. I said it in my book, do it in my podcast, and we actually put it in our newsletter. We talk about our newsletter every week that comes out. One other thing before I go any further, I also forgot, we have actually, again, we're trying to get people to truly realize that they have 100% control over their health. What they eat and what they don't eat has everything to do with how healthy, how many medications you're on, how much you go to the doctor, hospital. It all has to do with what you eat. That's why we're so sick nowadays. So besides having the book, besides having the podcast, besides having a newsletter that's going to come out every single Thursday to whoever wants to click on the newsletter link below, we also came up with 3 different courses to help people out depending on where you are in your health status. So since there's 3 different courses, if you would like to see, and these are digital courses that you go through, you watch videos, you do what the videos say, and we have 3 different ones depending on where you are right now in your health status, where you are financially right now. So if you would like to, you can click on the weight loss solution chat link below. It's a 15-minute, very quick chat with us, and we'll talk real quick and just see, are you a fit? Do we think that one of our courses could help you? And if we don't think it will, we are not going to try to push you. We're not trying to sell things. We're trying to educate people. But then if we do think it will, then we can assess which course would be best for you. But anyway, quick little 15-minute chat. Click on the weight loss solution chat below and get on my calendar, and we can talk about this. But anyway, so for today, the question that I'm getting all the time is because high triglycerides. How do you decrease triglycerides naturally? You do not want to do this with medications. All medications have adverse effects, and they just make things worse because all they do is treat the symptoms. If you keep eating glucose, then you're going to have to keep taking medicine to lower the glucose, or you can stop eating glucose. Same thing. If you keep eating all this glucose that's getting turned into triglycerides, and your triglycerides are too high, quit eating glucose, which means quit eating carbohydrates, which means quit eating plant-based foods. I mean, how much you quit, that's totally up to you. How sick are you? How obese are you? How many medications are you on? Okay. It's all up to you. And that's what I'm really trying to get through to people. You have 100% control over this. Okay. You could be off your medications, reverse your disease states, and live a healthy life if you just change what you eat. So, high triglycerides, where do they come from? What is a triglyceride? Okay. And I've said this before, and I hope it's not confusing, but if you could picture in your mind a capital E, so you have a vertical backbone, and then you have 3 horizontal bars. Okay. Picture that. That's a triglyceride. The backbone, that vertical backbone, is the glycerol. Okay. The 3 little horizontal bars, each of those is an individualized fatty acid. Okay. And so we're just going to walk you through what happens. How do you create these triglycerides? How do you move them around your body? And what do you do with them after that? Okay, so that's where we're going to be going with this. So first, where triglycerides come from, just like we said, we are inundating our bodies with glucose nowadays. It is everywhere. And all man-made products are made out of plant-based foods. That's why they try to lie to people and tell them that meat's bad, because they don't want to eat meat. They want to eat in their food. It's a marketing scheme, just like the food pyramid was a marketing scheme from the sugar industry to the food companies to market to everybody to tell them that they need to eat all their food by carbohydrates and stay away from meat, because they make money with that, because their food has no nutrients, so your body's hungry all the time. It has carbohydrates, which gets broken into glucose very quickly. You don't stay full for very long at all, so you're constantly hungry. And sugar actually has an extremely addictive property as a chemical in your body. Once you eat it, you just want more and more and more. It actually is an addictive chemical. They know that. That's why food companies put this in everything. And that's why we are eating glucose all the time, constantly. Okay. So as people, we eat the man-made foods and we eat all these fruits and vegetables and all these smoothies and all this crap that is just getting broken down. Our bodies don't know what we're putting in our mouth. Our intestines break it down to what our bodies need. So it breaks protein into amino acids, it breaks fat into fatty acids, and then it breaks all plant-based foods, breaks it into glucose. So our bodies, our inner body, our internal body, all it sees is glucose. So it tries to do what it can with the glucose. It doesn't want a high blood glucose level, so it tries to get the glucose out of the blood. The way it does this, first, if you are doing some kind of activity after you eat, and so you eat the glucose, okay, or carbohydrates, plant-based food. So when you eat this glucose, your body will put that in your bloodstream, and your body says, I don't want high blood glucose in my body. And there's lots of reasons why you don't want a high blood glucose. So your body starts producing insulin. First thing it's going to do is going to push glucose into the muscles if you are moving. If you eat and go for a walk, this is a great time to go for a walk. If you eat and just sit on the couch and watch TV, you're not doing anything, then this glucose is not going to go into your muscles. So what's the next thing? The next thing, you have little glucose stores. You have storage in your liver and you have storage in your muscle cells. Okay, not very much. You have about 400 calories stored glucose in your liver and about 2,000 calories stored in your muscles. Okay, but the muscles glucose is only used for that one muscle cell. It doesn't go into all the energy needs of your body. So you eat carbohydrates, turns it in glucose. Glucose levels go up. If you're active after you eat, insulin may push some into your muscles. If you're not, it may refill your glycogen stores or glucose stores. Okay, it'll make like little glucose bricks called glycogen and store it in your liver. However, we eat so much glucose that usually our glucose stores are not depleted. They're always full. So now the body says, okay, now what can I do? Well, when your blood glucose level goes over 180 milligrams per deciliter, 180 milligrams per deciliter, when it gets over that amount, your body will naturally just start spilling sugar into your urine. But we have people keep their glucose levels high for a long time, and even that, you overwhelm it. The kidneys cannot get rid of as much glucose as we are putting in it. So our body's overwhelmed. The only other thing, okay, so first, energy that's needed right after you eat, usually there isn't any. Refill your glucose stores, which you usually don't need to because you eat glucose constantly, and excrete some through the urine if it gets that high. But even that, you can maximize out. So the only other thing the body can do is take the rest of that glucose and turn that into fat in the form of triglycerides and store that in your fat cells, okay? Until your fat cells are so stuffed that even having high insulin isn't enough to push this fat in your fat cells. That's what insulin resistance is. Your fat cells are so stuffed, you can't stuff anymore in there. So now your insulin doesn't work as well. So now it takes more and more insulin, And now that's when you start seeing glucose levels rise. So that's more glucose that's being turned into triglycerides and stored. When you stuff all your fat cells, other things happen to where now the fat can't be stored in your fat cells. They have to go out and be stored all around your organs. When you, like your liver, your pancreas, your heart, your kidneys, your brain, you're storing fat everywhere. And this is why we get all the organ damage. High sugar, high insulin, and inflammation in our bodies are the three main pillars of sickness. When you have those three, you are starting to kill all the organs in your body. And it all started from what you put in your mouth. So a triglyceride, what this does, you eat the glucose, your body can't do anything really else with the glucose. So it has to turn into fat and form a triglyceride. Remember I said a triglyceride is like a capital E. So the vertical part is the glycerol backbone. The three horizontal parts are free fatty acids. Your body in the liver, your body takes and turns this glucose into free fatty acids. Then your liver combines the three fatty acids with the glycerol and turns it into a triglyceride. Okay, that's in the liver. But now your liver has to get that triglyceride out of the liver and circulate around to the body, because fat is good for the body. I mean, our body uses fat for all kinds of things. It helps with our thermal regulation for our body temperature. It protects our organs. It cushions our joints. Every single of our multi-trillion cells in our body, every single cell has a fatty bilayer around in the cell membrane. Okay, so we have to have fat to create new cells, and we're creating new cells all the time. Okay, so fat, and it makes a lot of our hormones, like cholesterol, our steroid hormones, like testosterone, estrogen, progesterone. Those are all made out of fats. Okay, fat is healthy. Don't listen to the food companies and drug companies. Okay, it's a lie. It's a marketing campaign. Okay, so you have to have fat. However, you can have too much. So what our bodies do with this is they take those triglycerides, and it takes a protein, because you can't just throw this fat into the blood, because blood is water and fat is fat, and fat and water do not mix. So what our bodies do is they take a protein, and they take this protein. I call them fatmobiles. These are the little fatmobiles. And inside this protein, you have cholesterol and you have triglycerides. That's how the body gets the fat and cholesterol and transports around the body to all the things that your body actually needs it for. However, since we eat so much, we don't even need that amount of fat. So all the other that it makes goes straight into stored in our fat cells. So so that's what a VLDL, LDL, IDL, when you go to get your cholesterol panel checked, that's what those are. It's a very low density lipoprotein. That's a VLDL. An LDL is a low density lipoprotein, and an IDL is an intermediate density lipoprotein. So when these come out of the liver as a VLDL, it's got a lot of triglycerides in it. But then this big fatmobile travels around with all these triglycerides and starts giving triglycerides all around the body to where this fat's needed. As it does, this fatmobile shrinks, and that becomes an intermediate density lipoprotein. You keep giving it more triglycerides, and then that shrinks even more, and that becomes a low density lipoprotein. So the more fat, the less dense it is. Okay, or the less dense, the more it floats. So what you want to do, okay, or what your body's trying to do is it's delivering all these triglycerides to wherever it needs to go, and it can't go anymore, so it goes to your fat cells. Once it's at your fat cells, it knocks on the door of the fat cell and says, "Can I come in?" Okay. What determines whether this fat goes into that fat cell for storage or not is insulin. Okay. Because, and I've talked about this in past podcasts, so I'm just going to breeze through this right now. A triglyceride, the big capital E, when it gets to that fat cell, it is too big to go across that cell membrane. So there's an enzyme on the outside of every single fat cell called LPL, lipoprotein lipase. What this enzyme does is it cuts those free fatty acids off of that glycerol. So now instead of having a triglyceride, you have 3 individual free fatty acids. Those now are small enough they can go across that cell membrane and get inside the fat cell. And then on the inside, the fat cell turns that back into a triglyceride and stores it. So that's why I say triglyceride is the form of fat that moves around your body, and it's also the form of fat that is your storage form of fat. That's what a triglyceride is. When we use it for energy, we'll cleave those free fatty acids off, and it's actually free fatty acids and the ketones that we use for our energy. That's what we should be using for our energy. So now you have this triglyceride, okay? Your triglyceride levels are high because your body's trying to figure out what to do with them because we're eating so much glucose that we're making so many triglycerides. As it puts it in your fat cells, this LPL cleaves those free fatty acids off, goes across the cell membrane, your fat cell turns it back into triglycerides. Now, we wait until our body says, we need energy. We need energy. So we need you to cleave that fat off, those free fatty acids off there again, and bring it out of the fat cell and into the body so we can use it. That's what we're doing. So inside the cell, when we need energy inside this cell, what happens is there's another enzyme that's just like the LPL on the outside. This is called HSL, hormone sensitive lipase, does the exact same thing. HSL is on the inside of the fat cell. You want to get fat into your bloodstream so you can use it for energy and for all the things that fat's used for. So you stimulate HSL and it cleaves those free fatty acids off that triglyceride again, allows those free fatty acids to come across the membrane and now can circulate through our body and be used where it needs. Okay, so what I just said was a triglyceride on the outside, LPL will cleave off the free fatty acids, let them go across and be on the inside and get turned back into triglycerides. Or if we need energy, the HSL will cleave the free fatty acids off that triglyceride, let them come back through the cell membrane and be inside. Okay, so the key point here is what stimulates LPL and what stimulates HSL. The enzyme on the outside of that fat cell is stimulated, makes it work by the presence of insulin. When your insulin levels are high, you are stimulating LPL to cleave those free fatty acids off that triglyceride and store that in your fat cells. Okay? When your insulin levels are high, that is all you can do, because high insulin not only does it stimulate the LPL on the outside of the cell, but it inhibits HSL on the inside of the cell. So when your insulin levels are high, all you can do is store fat. You cannot burn it. You physically cannot burn it when your insulin levels are high because you're inhibiting HSL. When that switches and your insulin levels are lower, when they go down, it does just the opposite. Now it stimulates HSL on the inside of the fat cell so you can cleave those free fatty acids off that triglyceride in the storage form. The 3 free fatty acids come across the cell membrane into our bloodstream where we can use that for energy. So when your insulin levels are low, you stimulate the enzyme on the inside, but you inhibit LPL, the enzyme on the outside. So this is why I say when your insulin levels are high, all you can do is store fat. When your insulin levels are low, all you can do is burn fat out of your fat cells and burn in your muscles. Because the other way this works is when your insulin levels are high, you actually force glucose into your muscles when they need it because that's your fight or flight response. When your insulin levels are low, you force fat into your muscle cells so they can use fat. So if you quit eating plant-based foods, okay, if you want to have fruits and vegetables now and then, that's fine. And that we can talk on our chat if you call about it. However, What happens is if you don't eat that and you keep your insulin levels low, what that does is that burns the fat out of your fat cells, which means losing weight, losing fat, without losing muscle. And that's the key, because everybody who's taking these weight loss drugs and they're on all these plant-based foods and all these stupid diets, they are not nourishing their bodies. They're not giving the nutrients, the amino acids, fatty acids, vitamins, minerals, and water that the body needs. Okay. That's what happens. So the body's eating itself. So of course it's going to eat its fat, but it's going to eat its muscle also, because you're not eating any protein. So anyway, that's not the healthy way to do it. But if you notice, when your insulin levels are low, you're eating the fat out of your fat cells. And also when your insulin levels are low, you're pushing fat into your muscle cells. So you just have this constant cycle of coming out of your fat cells into your muscles and burn it for energy. That's why people who are carnivores, people who are ketogenic, people who eat very low carb, like marathon runners, they have so much more endurance because they have a constant amount of energy on board. Your glucose stores, if you take all your glucose stores in your body and add them together, it's about 2,400 calories, 2,400 calories, glucose stores. Okay. Compare that to fat. Fat in 1 pound of fat has 4,000 calories. And look at how many pounds of fat excess people are carrying nowadays. So you have a lot of energy that you need to be burning. But when you keep eating plant-based foods, you never burn it. You keep storing it. And that's why the pounds keep adding up and adding up. When you finally change your thoughts about eating plant-based foods, you realize that you can eat these a little bit, but definitely don't eat very much, and stay totally away from man-made food. When you finally make that switch over in your brain, and I understand how that's very hard. It's very hard to make that switch because we've been brainwashed by the food companies and drug companies for 50 years, talking about how eating fat makes you fat. You need to have your base of your pyramid is you need to eat rice and bread and pasta and blah, blah. It's a lie. It is an absolute lie. Please don't believe that, because it's killing you. If you're on medications, if you go to the doctors all the time, if you're in hospital all the time, you need to get very strict about this. Stop eating glucose and your problems will go away. In a sense, that's exactly what's going to happen. You will learn to use your fat as your energy source, which is the way we've been. This is the way we've been since we were created by God. He knew there were going to be many times that we were going to be going without food. So we needed to have an energy source that we could carry with us and we could burn for energy. If we didn't, we would die. Exactly like type 1 diabetics. That's why type 1 diabetics, they cannot produce any insulin. Okay. Their pancreas just doesn't produce any insulin. So these patients, before we discovered insulin, before insulin was discovered back in 1920, before that, these patients, they would come in, their blood glucose levels could be over 1,000. I mean, very high blood glucose levels, but these people would be so emaciated. They had no fat on their bones. They were extremely lethargic. They could even walk in and they would end up dying because they had no energy source. They did not have insulin, so they couldn't use the glucose. And since their insulin levels were low, they burned all the fat out of their fat cells and used that for their energy. Type 2 diabetics is the exact opposite. Exact opposite. You have way too much insulin. You're just constantly stuffing your fat cells because you eat plant-based foods all the time, because you're eating the man-made foods, box, bottle, bag, can, cookies, pizzas, brownies, chips, soda pop, whatever, you know what I'm talking about. Everybody knows what this crap food is. It's killing you. It's killing you. And if you really want to get off meds, you want to reverse your type 2 diabetes, you want to reverse your hypertension, you want to reverse all this stuff, all you got to do is stop eating that kind of food. Teach your body to use fat for its fat energy source like God made us. We never started using glucose for our main energy source until food companies came out and started telling everybody this is the way they were supposed to eat. 1977, when our dietary guidelines, that's when all our diabetes skyrocketed, hypertension skyrocketed, cardiovascular disease skyrocketed. Alzheimer's, dementia, renal failure, been put on dialysis, fatty liver, everything has just increased like greatly since our food pyramid, since our food guidelines came out in 1977. So I understand it's hard for you to believe this. Please don't listen to just me. There are a lot of people out there that are saying the same thing. You can look behind us. This isn't a backdrop. This is our actual books. We read constantly. We watch things constantly. We listen. We go to conferences. There are thousands of people out here trying to get this message across to people, and I'm just one of them. So that's what a triglyceride. A triglyceride is the form of fat that your body makes when it turns glucose into fat, and it's the form of fat that you store. If you have a high triglyceride level, that means you're storing so much fat your body can't deal with it. You're eating so much glucose your body can't deal with it. You're keeping your insulin levels high, so all you can do. Remember, insulin not only tells your body it has to store fat, but insulin is what tells your body to turn that glucose into fat. Because that's, again, type 1 diabetics, even though they had all that glucose, they couldn't turn their glucose into fat because they didn't have insulin. Obesity, type 2 diabetics is the opposite. We have insulin. The insulin works perfectly fine. That's not what insulin resistance is. There's nothing wrong with insulin. There's nothing wrong with our cells. They're just so stuffed that they can't do anything with it. So that's why a type 1 diabetic cannot turn their glucose into fat, so they can't use it for energy, and they died, before insulin came out. Type 2 diabetics have insulin out going crazy. So you can turn all your glucose into fat. You can still stuff all that fat in your fat cells. Everything that insulin does still works when you are insulin resistant. The only thing that doesn't work is the fact that it takes more insulin to get the glucose out of your blood. But again, all you got to do is stop putting glucose in your blood. Your body's not going to do this naturally. If you're a fat burner, your body's not going to say, oh, I guess I need some glucose. It does, but so little. If you take all the blood in your bloodstream right now, take it all out, centrifuge it down, get all the glucose out of it, do you know that you only have 2 teaspoons of glucose in your blood? That's it. That's all you need. And your body can make glucose out of fat, and your body can make glucose out of amino acids. Okay. So you don't need to eat any glucose. You don't need to eat a plant-based food at all. If you have fat and protein, then you can make all the glucose you need because you don't need that much. So if we only have 2 teaspoons in our blood right now, circulating around, and you have 10 teaspoons of sugar in 1 can of pop, back in 1965, as estimated that we take in an average of 2 teaspoons of sugar a day per person per day, 2 teaspoons in 1965. In 2015, it was estimated that we take in an average of 65 teaspoons of sugar per person per day because it's in all man-made food, and anything made out of plant is made out of glucose. We are eating sugar constantly nowadays. People love it. They're so psyched they think that something doesn't even taste good unless it tastes sweet. You've got to change your thoughts. Change how you think about it. When you taste sweet, know that is what's killing you. That's why you're on your medication. That's why you have diseases. It's because that sweet tastes in your mouth. And if you can get over that and start thinking, oh, this is sweet. It tastes like battery acid, because that's what it is. It's toxic. Okay. So really get that in the habit. Get in the habit of doing that. Choosing animal-based products over plant-based products. You're going to be so much healthier. You'll decrease your triglycerides because, again, triglycerides come from your body turning glucose into a form of fat that you can carry around the body and store in your fat cells. That's why it's there. So lower the glucose by lowering the amount of plant-based foods that you eat in your mouth. And when you do that, you're going to keep your insulin levels down. You're going to get your inflammation down. And when your insulin levels are down, you're going to be burning fat out of your fat cells and pushing it into your muscle cells. So it's a win-win. You'll reverse your type 2 diabetes. You'll get rid of all of your diabetic medications. We are seeing people get off their medications all the time, reversing their type 2 diabetes all the time. I just want to get it out to you that this is not a scam. This isn't a scheme. I'm not asking anything from you. I just want to educate. I care about your health. I care about my health, and everything that I'm telling you, we do the same thing because I want to be the healthiest grandfather around. So that's all I have for today. I hope you understand what a triglyceride is now. And if you have any other questions, please just let me know. If you think that you'd like to take one of the digital courses that we put together, and one of them actually you get us also, we'll have one-on-one conversations through this course. But if you think you might want to do one of those courses, you don't know if it's going to be right for you, you don't know if you're going to be able to finance it or not, and trust me, these are not expensive courses. It's about your health, not about the money. So all you got to do is click on the Weight Loss Solutions chat link down below, get on my calendar. It's a 15-minute free call, and we're just going to talk one-on-one and just see if maybe what we have for you will help. But between the book, the podcast, the newsletter, and now the digital courses, we're trying to do all we can to help you guys get healthy, get off medications, reverse your diseases, and live a good quality life. That's what we want for you. So along with that, please enjoy this week. It's going to be a beautiful week. Have fun. You're with your family, friends, or by yourself, whatever you want to do. And as always, thank you so much, and make simple, healthy choices for living a quality life.